Hello, and welcome to another session here at the Explore English online channel, where we dive into all things related to learning, improving, and mastering the English language. Today we're tackling one of the most frustrating challenges faced by English learners across the globe. I understand English, but I cannot speak. Now, if you've ever found yourself listening to a conversation, watching a movie, or even reading an article in English and thinking, I get this, I understand everything. But then, when it comes time to speak, your mind goes blank, or the words just don't come out. You're not alone. This is a problem many learners face, and trust me, there's a reason for that. Before we dive into solutions, let me give you a quick introduction to who I am. I've been teaching English for over 15 years, helping learners from all walks of life, students, professionals, travelers, achieve their language goals. And one thing I've consistently heard, over and over again, is this very issue of understanding, but struggling to speak. This session is not just going to give you a few quick tips and send you on your way. Oh no, we're going to dig deep. We're going to talk about why this happens, how to overcome it, and I'm going to give you long, detailed examples that will really make it clear for you. We'll cover methods that work, why they work, and how you can apply them to your own language learning journey. Understanding the gap. All right, let's start by talking about why. This gap between understanding and speaking exists. This is crucial because if you know the root of the problem, you can start fixing it in a focused way. Many learners think that if they can understand English, whether it's spoken or written, they should naturally be able to speak it. And logically, that makes sense, right? But in practice, it's not so simple. You see, understanding a language and speaking it are two completely different skills. Let me explain. When you listen or read in English, your brain is processing information passively. This means that you're taking in the language, decoding it, and making sense of it. But it's a lot like watching someone swim in the ocean. You might see them doing it perfectly, but it doesn't mean you can jump in and swim just as well. Listening and reading are passive activities. Speaking, on the other hand, is an active process. You need to produce language, and that involves multiple steps: thinking of the right words, constructing sentences, using correct grammar, and delivering it fluently. It's like being in the water yourself and actually swimming. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're watching a football game. You understand the rules, you know the strategy, and you can even comment on the player's performance. But if you were to step onto the field and play yourself, it's a completely different ball game. It's the same with language. You can be an excellent observer, but when it's your turn to perform, the challenge is different. What causes the gap? So what causes this gap? Why can you understand English but not speak it fluently? One major reason is that most traditional learning focuses more on passive skills like reading and listening. Think about your English classes. How often were you asked to read a text, listen to a recording, or fill in the blanks on a worksheet? Probably a lot. But how often were you given opportunities to engage in real conversations where you had to think on your feet and respond in real time? Probably much less. And this is key. The brain is like a muscle, and it gets good at what it practices. If you're only practicing passive skills, you'll get good at passive skills. But if you're not practicing speaking, that skill isn't going to develop the way it needs to. It's like going to the gym, but only working out your legs when you want to build upper body strength. You're not training the right muscles. Let's take a moment to look at some data. Studies show that the average language learner spends around 70% of their time on passive activities like reading and listening. Only about 30% of their time is spent on speaking. That's a huge imbalance. If you want to improve your speaking, you've got to flip that ratio around. The role of fear and confidence. Another big factor is fear. Yes, fear. Speaking a foreign language can be intimidating, especially if you're worried about making mistakes or sounding silly. But here's the thing. Mistakes are a natural part of the learning process. No one speaks a new language perfectly from the start, and that's okay. Let me share a personal story. One of my students, Maria, had been studying English for 5 years. She could understand almost everything, but when it came time to speak, she would freeze. She was so worried about saying something wrong that she preferred to stay quiet. But here's the truth. The more you speak, the better you get. Maria's breakthrough came when she realized that fluency doesn't mean perfection. I remember we were having a conversation, and she said something grammatically incorrect. I smiled and encouraged her to keep going, and she did. Over time, she became more comfortable, and her speaking improved dramatically. So remember, it's not about speaking perfectly. It's about getting your message across. Think about young children learning to speak their native language. They make tons of mistakes, but they're not embarrassed about it. They just keep talking, and over time, they improve. That's the mindset you need to adopt when learning English. Practical solutions. Now that we've covered why this gap exists, let's talk about how to bridge it. The good news is that with the right strategies, you can start improving your speaking skills today. 1. Practice, practice, practice. The first and most important thing you need to do is practice speaking as much as possible. There's no substitute for it. If you want to get better at speaking, you have to speak. It's that simple. Let me give you an example. There was a study conducted on 2 groups of language learners. One group focused primarily on grammar and vocabulary, while the other group spent the majority of their time engaging in conversations, even if they made mistakes. After 6 months, the group that focused on conversations had far better speaking skills than the group that concentrated on grammar. So, how can you practice speaking? One of the best ways is to find a language partner. This could be a friend, a tutor, or even someone you meet online. There are so many platforms where you can connect with other language learners or native speakers. The key is to have regular conversations, even if they're short. If you're thinking, "But I don't have anyone to practice with," don't worry. You can also practice speaking to yourself. It might sound strange, but it works. Talk out loud in English as you go about your day. Describe what you're doing, what you're thinking, or even have imaginary conversations. The more you use English, the more comfortable you'll become with it. 2. Shadowing technique. Another effective method is the shadowing technique. This is when you listen to a native speaker and try to repeat what they're saying as closely as possible. It helps with pronunciation, intonation, and fluency. For example, if you're watching an English TV show or listening to a podcast, try pausing after each sentence and repeating what was said. This forces your brain to produce the language in real time, which is exactly what you need when speaking. Over time, this will improve your ability to think and speak in English without hesitation. 3. Daily speaking practice. Now, let's talk about daily speaking practice. You might think, I don't have anyone to practice with. But that's no excuse. There are plenty of ways to practice speaking English on your own. For example, you can start by talking to yourself. Yes, that's right. Talk to yourself. Choose a topic, and for 5 to 10 minutes a day, explain it out loud as if you're giving a presentation. You can talk about your day, describe something you see around you, or even explain your plans for the weekend. It might feel awkward at first, but trust me, it's a powerful way to build confidence and fluency. Imagine this scenario. You wake up in the morning and decide to explain your daily routine out loud in English. You say something like, "First, I wake up at 7 a.m. Then, I make my bed and brush my teeth. After that, I have breakfast, usually some toast and coffee. Finally, I start my work for the day." By doing this consistently, you'll start to form sentences more naturally, and over time, speaking English will become less of a struggle. 4. Use language exchange apps. Another fantastic way to improve your speaking skills is by using language exchange apps. These apps connect you with native English speakers who are learning your native language, so you can help each other out. You'll speak in English for a while, and then switch to your language, giving both of you the chance to practice. Let's say you're a native Spanish speaker. You could use a language exchange app like Tandem or Hello Talk to find an English speaker who is learning Spanish. You could start your conversation by saying something simple in English, like, "Hi, my name is Juan. I'm learning English, and I'd love to practice with you." Then, your partner might respond in English, and you'll continue the conversation from there. After some time, you'll switch and help them with their Spanish. The beauty of these apps is that they're free, and you can practice with people from all over the world, which not only improves your speaking, but also gives you insight into different cultures and accents. 5. Record yourself speaking. Recording yourself is another powerful technique to improve your speaking skills. When you record yourself, you can listen to how you sound and compare it with native speakers. This allows you to notice areas where you can improve, such as pronunciation, intonation, and grammar. Take out your phone, open the voice recording app, and talk about a simple topic like what you did yesterday. Record yourself saying something like, "Yesterday, I went to the park with my friends. We played soccer and had a picnic. It was a lot of fun." After recording, listen to yourself and note where you hesitated or made mistakes. Repeat the exercise until you're able to speak fluently without too many pauses. 6. Join English-speaking communities. One of the best ways to improve your speaking skills is to immerse yourself in English-speaking environments. This can be done online or in person. You could join English-speaking clubs, attend meetups, or participate in online forums where people speak English. For example, you could join an English book club where members read a book and then discuss it in English. You don't have to be perfect. The goal is to practice speaking and get used to expressing your thoughts in English. Let's say you join an online book club that discusses popular English novels. The next meeting is about the book The Alchemist. Even if you haven't finished reading the whole book, you can still participate by sharing your thoughts on the first few chapters. You might say something like, "I really enjoyed the part where Santiago meets the king. It made me think about following my dreams." The more you engage in these kinds of conversations, the more comfortable you'll become with speaking English. Remember, fluency in English doesn't come overnight. It takes consistent practice, patience, and the right strategies. But the good news is, you can do it. By using methods like shadowing, daily speaking practice, language exchange apps, recording yourself, and joining English-speaking communities, you'll start to see real improvements in your ability to speak English confidently. Speaking English fluently is not just about knowing the words or grammar. It's about training your brain to produce the language without hesitation. So, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Embrace the learning process, and over time, you'll notice that speaking English becomes easier and more natural. Conclusion. All right, we've covered a lot today. We talked about the gap between understanding and speaking, why it happens, and most importantly, how to fix it. Remember, the key to improving your speaking skills is consistent practice, embracing mistakes, and finding opportunities to engage in real conversations. If you take one thing away from this session, let it be this: don't be afraid to speak. The more you practice, the better you'll get. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but with time, you'll find yourself speaking English more confidently and fluently. Thank you for joining me today on Useful Session. I hope you found this session helpful and motivating. If you did, don't forget to subscribe, share this video with others, and leave a comment about your own experiences with learning to speak English. Until next time, keep practicing and remember, you've got this.